Hello and welcome to today's Gosho reading, which will be the beginning of the Rissho Ankoku Ron, one of the major works of Nichiren Daishonin, one of his 5 major writings, known in English as On Establishing the Correct Teaching for the Peace of the Land, in Volume 1 of the Writings of Nichiren Daishonin. I will begin on establishing the correct teaching for the peace of the land. Once there was a traveler who spoke these words in sorrow to his host. In recent years there have been unusual disturbances in the heavens, strange occurrences on earth, famine and pestilence, all affecting every corner of the empire and spreading throughout the land. Oxen and horses lie dead in the streets, and the bones of the stricken crowd the highways. Over half the population has already been carried off by death, and there is hardly a single person who does not grieve. All the while some put their whole faith in the sharp sword of the Buddha, Amida, and intone the name of this Lord of the Western Land. Others believe that hearing the name of the Buddha Medicine Master will heal all ills, and recite the sutra that describes this thus come one of the eastern region. Some putting their trust in the passage in the Lotus Sutra that says, quote, his illness will be wiped out and he will know neither old age nor death, pay homage to the wonderful words of that sutra. Others, relying upon the sutra passage that reads, quote, the 7 disasters will instantly vanish and the 7 blessings will instantly appear, conduct ceremonies at which 100 priests expound the sutra at 100 preaching platforms. There are those who follow the esoteric teachings of the True Word School and conduct rituals in which they fill 5 jars with water, and others who devote themselves entirely to seated meditation and try to perceive the emptiness of all phenomena as clearly as the moon. Some write out the names of the 7 guardian spirits and paste them on 1,000 gates. Others paint pictures of the 5 mighty bodhisattvas and hang them over 10,000 thresholds, and still others pray to the heavenly gods and earthly deities in ceremonies conducted at the 4 corners of the capital and on the 4 boundaries of the nation. Taking pity on the plight of the common people, the rulers carry out government on the national and local levels in a benevolent manner. But despite all these efforts, they merely exhaust themselves in vain. Famine and epidemics rage more fiercely than ever. Beggars are everywhere in sight, and scenes of death fill our eyes. Corpses pile up in mounds like observation platforms, and dead bodies lie side by side like planks on a bridge. If we look about, we find that the moon and sun continue to move in their accustomed orbits, and the 5 planets follow the proper course. The 3 treasures of Buddhism continue to exist, and the period of 100 rains has not yet expired. Then why is it that the world has already fallen into decline, and that the laws of the state have come to an end? What is wrong? What error has been committed? The host then spoke. I have been brooding alone upon this matter, indignant in my heart. But now that you have come, we can lament together. Let us discuss the question at length. When a man leaves family life and enters the Buddhist way, it is because he hopes to attain Buddhahood through the teachings of the Buddha. But attempts now to move the gods fail to have any effect, and appeals to the power of the Buddhas produce no results. When I observe carefully the state of the world today, I see people who give way to doubt because of the lack of understanding on the part of eminent priests. They look up at the heavens and mouth their resentment, or gaze down at the earth and sink deep into despair. I have pondered the matter carefully with what limited resources I possess, and have looked a little at the scriptures for an answer. The people of today all turn their backs upon what is right, To a person, they give their allegiance to evil. This is an important passage, so I will read it once more. The people of today all turn their backs upon what is right. To a person, they give their allegiance to evil. This is the reason that the benevolent deities have abandoned the nation and departed together, that sages leave and do not return, and in their stead devils and demons come, and disasters and calamities occur. I cannot keep silent on this matter. I cannot suppress my fears. The guest said, "These disasters that befall the empire, these calamities of the nation, I am not the only one pained by them. The whole populace is weighed down with sorrow. Now I have been privileged to enter the orchid room and listen to these enlightening words of yours. You speak of the gods and sages taking leave, and of disasters and calamities arising in sequence. Upon what sutras do you base your views? Could you describe for me the passages of proof?" The host said, "There are numerous passages that could be cited, and a wide variety of proofs. For example, in the Golden Light Sutra we read, quote, "The four heavenly kings said to the Buddha, though this sutra exists in the nation, its ruler has never allowed it to be propagated. In his heart he turns away from it, and he takes no pleasure in hearing its teachings. He neither makes offerings to it, honors it, nor praises it. Nor is he willing to honor or make offerings to the four kinds of Buddhists who embrace the sutra. In the end, he makes it impossible for us and the other countless heavenly beings who are followers to hear this profound and wonderful teaching. He deprives us of the sweet dew of its words and cuts us off from the flow of the correct teaching, so that our majesty and strength are drained away. Thus the number of beings who occupy the evil paths increases, and the number who dwell in the human and heavenly realms decreases. People fall into the river of the sufferings of birth and death, and turn their backs on the road to nirvana. World-honored one, we, the four heavenly kings, as well as our various followers and yakshas and other beings, observing this state of affairs, have decided to abandon this nation, for we have no heart to protect it. And it is not we alone who cast aside this ruler. All the great benevolent deities who guard and watch over the countless different regions of the country will also invariably reject him. And once we and the others abandon and desert this nation, then many different types of disasters will occur in the country, and the ruler will fall from power. Not a single person in the entire population will possess a heart of goodness. There will be nothing but binding and enslaving, killing and injury, anger and contention. People will slander each other or fawn upon one another, and the laws will be twisted until even the innocent are made to suffer. Pestilence will become rampant. Comets will appear again and again. Two suns will come forth side by side, and eclipses will occur with unaccustomed frequency. Black arcs and white arcs will span the sky as harbingers of ill fortune. Stars will fall, the earth will shake, and noises will issue from the wells. Torrential rains and violent winds will come out of season. Famine will constantly occur, and grains and fruits will not ripen. Marauders from many other regions will invade and plunder the nation. The people will suffer all manner of pain and affliction, and no place will exist where one may live in safety." Unquote. The Great Collection Sutra says, quote, "When the teachings of the Buddha truly become obscured and lost, then people will all let their beards, hair, and fingernails grow long, and the laws of the world will be forgotten and ignored. At that time, loud noises will sound in the air, and the earth will shake. Everything in the world will begin to move as though it were a water wheel. City walls will split and tumble, and all houses and dwellings will collapse. Roots, Branches, leaves, petals, and fruits will lose their medicinal properties. With the exception of the heavens of purity, all the regions of the world of desire will become deprived of the 7 flavors and the 3 kinds of vitality, until not a trace of them remains any more. All the good discourses that lead people to emancipation will at this time disappear. The flowers and fruits that grow in the earth will become few and will lose their flavor and sweetness. The wells, springs, and ponds will all go dry. The land everywhere will turn brackish and will crack open and warp into hillocks and gullies. All the mountains will be swept by fire, and the heavenly beings and dragons will no longer send down rain. The seedlings of the crops will all wither and die, all the living plants will perish, and even the weeds will cease to grow any more. Dust will rain down until all is darkness, and the sun and moon no longer shed their light. All the 4 directions will be afflicted by drought, and evil omens will appear again and again. The 10 evil acts will increase greatly, particularly greed, anger, and foolishness. And people will think no more of their fathers and mothers than does the roe deer. Living beings will decline in numbers, in longevity, physical strength, dignity, and enjoyment. They will become estranged from the delights of human and heavenly realms, and all will fall into the paths of evil. The wicked rulers and monks who perform these 10 evil acts will curse and destroy my correct teaching and make it difficult for those in the human and heavenly realms to stay there. At that time, the benevolent deities and heavenly kings, who would ordinarily take pity on living beings, will abandon this impure and evil nation, and all will make their way to other regions. Unquote. The Benevolent Kings Sutra states, quote, when a nation becomes disordered, it is the spirits that first show signs of rampancy. Because the spirits become rampant, all the people of the nation become disordered. Invaders come to plunder the country, and the common people face annihilation. The ruler, the high ministers, the crown prince, the other princes, and the 100 officials all quarrel with one another over right and wrong. Heaven and earth manifest prodigies and strange occurrences. The 28 constellations, the stars, and the sun and moon appear at irregular times and in irregular positions, and numerous outlaws rise up. Unquote. The same sutra also states, quote, now when I use the 5 types of vision to clearly perceive the 3 existences, I see that in their past existence all the rulers served 500 Buddhas, and that is the reason that they were able to become emperors and sovereigns. And that is also the reason that all the various sages and arhats are born in their nations and bring great benefits. But if a time should come when the good fortune of these rulers runs out, then all the sages will abandon them and depart. Once the sages have departed, then the 7 disasters are certain to arise. Unquote. The Medicine Master Sutra states, quote, if disasters and calamities should befall members of the ruling Kshatriya class and anointed kings, such disasters will be as follows: the calamity of disease and pestilence among the populace, the calamity of invasion from foreign lands, the calamity of revolt within one's own domain, the calamity of irregularities and strange occurrences among the stars and constellations, the calamity of eclipses of the sun and moon, the calamity of unseasonable wind and rain, and the calamity of rain that fails to fall even when the season for it has come and gone. Unquote. In the Benevolent King's Sutra, the Buddha addresses King Prasenajit with these words, quote, great king, The region where my teachings now hold sway consists of 1 billion Sumeru worlds, with 1 billion suns and moons. Each of these Sumeru worlds comprises 4 continents. In the southern continent of Jambudvipa, there are 16 great states, 500 middle-sized states, and 10,000 smaller states. In these states, 7 types of fearful disasters may occur. All the rulers of these states agree that these are indeed disasters. What then are these disasters? When the sun and moon depart from their regular courses, when the seasons come in the wrong order, when a red sun or a black sun appears, when 2, 3, 4, or 5 suns appear at the same time, when the sun is eclipsed and loses its light, or when 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 coronas appear around the sun, this is the first disaster. When the 28 constellations do not move in their regular courses, when the metal star, the broom star, the wheel star, the demon star, the fire star, the water star, the wind star, the ladle star, the southern dipper, the northern dipper, the great stars of the 5 garrisons, and all the many stars that govern the ruler, the 3 high ministers, and the 100 officials. When each of these stars manifests some peculiar behavior, this is the second disaster. When huge fires consume the nation and the people are all burned to death, or when there are outbreaks of demon fire, dragon fire, heavenly fire, mountain god fire, human fire, tree fire, or bandit fire, when these prodigies appear, this is the third disaster. When huge floods drown the population, when the season comes out of order and there is rain in winter, snow in summer, thunder and lightning in winter, and ice, frost, and hail in the 6th month. When red, black, or green rain falls. When mountains of dirt and stone come raining down, or when it rains dust, sand, or gravel. When the rivers and streams run backward. When mountains are afloat and boulders are washed away. When freakish happenings of this kind occur, this is the 4th disaster. When huge winds blow the people to their death, and the lands, the mountains and rivers, and the trees and forests are all at one time wiped out, when great winds come out of season, or when black winds, red winds, green winds, heavenly winds, earthly winds, fire winds, and water winds blow. When prodigies of this kind occur, this is the 5th disaster. When heaven and earth and the whole country are stricken by terrible heat, so that the air seems to be on fire, when the 100 plants wither and the 5 kinds of grain fail to ripen, when the earth is red and scorched and the inhabitants all perish, when prodigies of this kind occur, this is the 6th disaster. When enemies rise up on all 4 sides and invade the nation, when rebels appear in the capital and the outlying regions, when there are fire bandits, water bandits, wind bandits, and demon bandits, and the population is subjected to devastation and disorder, and fighting and plundering break out everywhere, when prodigies of this type occur, this is the 7th disaster." Unquote. The Great Collection Sutra says, quote, "Though for countless existences in the past, the ruler of a state may have practiced the giving of alms, observed the precepts, and cultivated wisdom, if he sees that my teaching is in danger of perishing and stands idly by without doing anything to protect it, then all the inestimable roots of goodness that he has planted through the practices just mentioned will be entirely wiped out, and his country will become the scene of 3 inauspicious occurrences. The first is high grain prices, the second is warfare, and the third is epidemics." The first is high grain prices, the second is warfare, and the third is epidemics. All the benevolent deities will abandon the country, and although the ruler may issue commands, the people will not obey them. The country will constantly be invaded and vexed by neighboring nations. Violent fires will rage out of control. Fierce winds and rain will abound. The waters will swell and overflow, and the inhabitants will be blown about by winds or swept away by floods. The paternal and maternal relatives of the ruler will join in plotting revolt. Before long, the ruler will fall gravely ill, and after his life has come to an end, he will be reborn in the great hell, and the same fate will befall the ruler's consort, his heir, the high ministers of the state, the lord of cities, the village heads and generals, the magistrates of districts, and the other officials." Unquote. The passages I have quoted from these 4 sutras are perfectly clear. What person in 10,000 could possibly doubt their meaning? And yet the blind and the deluded recklessly trust to distorted doctrines, and fail to recognize the correct teaching. Therefore, throughout the empire these days, people are inclined to turn away from the Buddhas and the Sutras, and no longer endeavor to protect them. Because of this, the benevolent deities and sages abandon the nation and leave their accustomed places. As a result, demons and evil spirits bring about disasters and cause calamities. The guest thereupon flushed with anger and said, "Emperor Ming of the later Han Dynasty, having comprehended the significance of his dream of a golden man, welcomed the teachings of Buddhism brought by white horses. Prince Jo-gu, having put down the rebellion of Moriya, an opponent of Buddhism, proceeded to construct temples and pagodas. Since that time, from the ruler on down to the common people, all have worshipped the Buddha images and devoted their attention to the scriptures. As a result, in the monasteries of Mount Hiei and the southern capital at Nara, at the temples of Onjoji and Toji throughout the land bounded by the 4 seas, in the 5 provinces of the capital area and along the 7 marches, Buddha images and Buddhist scriptures have been ranged like stars in the sky, and walls of worship have spread like clouds. Those who belong to the lineage of Shariputra meditate on the moon atop Eagle Peak, while those who adhere to the traditions of Haklanayashas transmit the teachings of Mount Kukutapada. How then can anyone say that the teachings of the Buddha's lifetime are despised, or that the 3 treasures of Buddhism have ceased to exist? If there is evidence to support such a contention, I would like to hear all the facts." The host, anxious to clarify his words, replied, "To be sure, Buddhist halls stand rooftop to rooftop, and storehouses, sutra storehouses, are arranged eave to eave. Priests are as numerous as bamboo plants and rushes, monks as common as rice and hemp seeds. The temples and priests have been honored from centuries past, and every day respect is paid them anew. But the monks and priests today are fawning and devious, and they confuse the people and lead them astray. The ruler and his subjects lack understanding and fail to distinguish between what is correct and what is erroneous. The Benevolent King's Sutra, for example, says, quote, "Evil monks, hoping to gain fame and profit, in many cases appear before the ruler, the crown prince, or the other princes, and take it upon themselves to preach doctrines that lead to the violation of the Buddhist law and the destruction of the nation. The ruler, failing to perceive the truth of the situation, listens to and puts faith in such doctrines and proceeds to create regulations that are perverse in nature and do not accord with the rules of Buddhist discipline. In this way, he brings about the destruction of Buddhism and of the nation." Unquote. The Nirvana Sutra states, quote, "Bodhisattvas have no fear of mad elephants. What you should fear are evil friends. Even if you are killed by a mad elephant, you will not fall into the three evil paths. But if you are killed by an evil friend, you are certain to fall into them." Unquote. This is a very famous passage. I will read it again from the Nirvana Sutra. Quote, "Bodhisattvas, have no fear of mad elephants. What you should fear are evil friends. Even if you are killed by a mad elephant, you will not fall into the three evil paths. But if you are killed by an evil friend, you are certain to fall into them." The Lotus Sutra says, quote, "In that evil age there will be monks and with perverse wisdom and hearts that are fawning and crooked, who will suppose they have attained what they have not attained, being proud and boastful in heart." I'll read that also famous passage again. "In that evil age there will be monks with perverse wisdom and hearts that are fawning and crooked, who will suppose they have attained what they have not attained, being proud and boastful in heart. Or there will be forest-dwelling monks wearing clothing of patched rags and living in retirement, who will claim they are practicing the true way, despising and looking down on all humankind. Greedy for profit and support, they will preach the law to white-robed laymen, and will be respected and revered by the world, as though they were arhats who possess the six transcendental powers. Because in the midst of the great assembly they constantly try to defame us, they will address the rulers, high ministers, Brahmins, and householders, as well as the other monks, slandering and speaking evil of us, saying, 'These are men of perverted views who preach non-Buddhist doctrines.' In a muddied kalpa, in an evil age, there will be many things to fear. Evil demons will take possession of others, and through them curse, revile, and heap shame on us. The evil monks of that muddied age, failing to understand the Buddha's expedient means, how he preaches the law in accordance with what is appropriate, will confront us with foul language and angry frowns. Again and again we will be banished." The Nirvana Sutra says, quote, "After I have passed away, and countless hundreds of years have gone by, the sages of the four stages too will have all passed away. After the former day of the law has ended, and the middle age of the law has begun, there will be monks who will give the appearance of abiding by the rules of monastic discipline, but they will scarcely ever read or recite the sutras, and instead will crave all kinds of food and drink to nourish their bodies. Though they wear the clothes of a monk, they will go about searching for alms like so many huntsmen who, narrowing their eyes, stalk softly. They will be like a cat on the prowl for mice, and they will constantly reiterate these words, quote, 'I have attained arhatship,' unquote. Outwardly they will seem to be wise and good, but within they will harbor greed and jealousy. And when they are asked to preach the teachings, they will say nothing, like Brahmins who have taken a vow of silence. They are not true monks. They merely have the appearance of monks. Consumed by their erroneous views, they slander the correct teaching." Unquote. When we look at the world in the light of these passages, we see that the situation is just as they describe it. If we do not admonish the evil priests, how can we hope to do good? I will end there for today. Thank you for listening. Please see the next video, which begins with the guest comment on what the host just said in this Rissho Ankoku Ron. And please like and subscribe to this channel if you would like to continue hearing the Rissho Ankoku Ron and other readings of Nichiren Daishonin's writings by Elisa. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.